Hi, and welcome to the Wearfer in Conversation podcast. My name is Olga, and I am the founder at Wearfer and your host for today's conversation. Today, I am joined by Orsola De Castro, an upcyclist, fashion designer, author, the queen of sustainability, and so much more. Orsola is the creative director at Estethica and the co-founder at Fashion Revolution, an activism movement which works towards a sustainable fashion industry. De Castro has been in the sustainable fashion space for more than 20 years, since founding an upcycling brand from somewhere in 1997. Orsola, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a massive honor and pleasure to have you and speak with you.
Thank you for having me.
And one question that I ask all my guests on the podcast is to sort of reflect on this conversation and what would make this a win for you. So potentially looking back on this conversation, maybe even today as we move forward, maybe from 6 months from now, what would make it a win that you joined us and we had this conversation?
I don't win nor lose ever. I am not a winner. I'm not a loser. I am a genuine competitor. Competition actually means competitor. It means to strive together. I am utterly uninterested in measuring my life or career in terms of successes and failures, because I don't believe that is the crux of it. So in 6 months from now, I hope to be as happy as I am right now, sitting here with enough projects as I have right now in my head and in my everyday life. But I don't plan ahead. I don't have goals. I drift, really. I'm a drifter in life, a drifter and a crocheter so I just don't know. I mean, the most exciting thing could be, just behind my corner tomorrow, or the most exciting thing could have been behind my corner yesterday, and I don't know it yet.
No, that's lovely. That's a lovely start. Thank you. And taking you back a little bit, I'm really curious to learn about where does your interest in fashion come from?
It's a really difficult one because I can't split the moment when I wasn't interested in fashion. But of course, I didn't call it fashion when I was 2.5 years old. So I'm interested in how people manifest themselves, and I'm very, very interested in colors. So I think that those were the two things that brought me. I mean, I had a very, very strong from a very young age, but I can't tell you why, where, or when. So as far as I am concerned, clothing is as part of my body as any other organ will ever be. It's the same as hair, nail, legs. And I don't remember when it became more than this, or a vocation or a genuine interest. It's always been with me, and I think it probably always will.
Lovely. Okay. And given that you are the co-founder at Fashion Revolution, I wonder also what sort of feelings accompanied you those 10 years ago when you founded the movement?
So there wasn't, it was Carrie's idea, Carrie Summers, the other co-founder, who actually called me after the Rana Plaza saying, look, let's do a commemorative day, let's do a Fashion Revolution day, because the Rana Plaza disaster, which happened on the 24th of April 2013, was very much the catalyst for further change, and Fashion Revolution was born as a result of that. However, I have been working in sustainability and promoting sustainable brands for a number of years already then. So the sense was that we weren't going fast enough and that something really needed to be done. My interest in Fashion Revolution really became very strong after we started the movement, after we created the founding team, when I saw how many people from all over the world were wanting to start their own chapters of Fashion Revolution. That's when I realized that we had something really unique and really, really different. That's also when I realized how, to a certain extent, the importance of giving visibility to others and how fashion is not as centralized as we think it. And so that's really the feelings at the time, was having to do something that was non-negotiable not to. The helplessness of not knowing quite what to do, and then slowly the unfolding of a global movement, which of course was very important, both to myself and Carrie, who founded it, but to sustainability and in fashion in general. But it did come from helplessness, and I remain helpless.
Yeah, well, you sort of jumped forward to my next question in terms of, do you feel like things have progressed? Do you think like things have changed? No.
Yes, things have changed, but they haven't progressed. So maybe we have progressed, maybe consumers, citizens, maybe we understand more and more of us are looking for change. We are certainly more articulate in looking for change, as in we can actually speak the language now. There is massive change when it comes to smaller brands, smaller realities, real creative designers all over the world making radical change happen. And radical, I mean radical in every sense of the word radical, because it's both radical in the sense that it's extraordinary and different and unseen, but it's also radical because it's deeply founded in the roots of fashion. Fashion is sustainable in its origins. So mainstream brands, big brands, I mean, reluctancy to change has reached peak level. Capacity to greenwash is, beyond ridiculous, to the point I don't know how they don't laugh at themselves when they come up with these obscene lies that we're all supposed to be believing. So, no, not enough change. I mean, simply when people say why, but there has been so much, which brand, fast fashion or fast luxury, pays their supply chain worker a living wage? Answer that question. No one. Very, very, very few, and we don't know who they are. Second question, which brand, fast fashion or fast luxury, has actually put their hand up and said we're going to be producing less because we are excessive? None of them. Not enough change. In fact, I was talking to another group of activists the other day, and I was saying, it feels to me as if we were supposed to be influencing the mainstream, and pretty much the opposite happened. The mainstream influenced us. So we are, we started as a coalition, we're further divided, we're competing against each other, we've put the word rivalry in between our organizations. So, really, honestly, it's been really hard to do the work that we set out to do. And we still find so much opposition. It's extraordinary.
Do you have any ideas around where that change could come from?
I'm just fed up. I'm just, I resigned from Fashion Revolution a year ago. Now, you never resign from something you have founded. But I couldn't live the principles that I was trying to change. I don't want to be the woman at the top that everyone looks up to. That's not me. I'm an accompanier. I'm not a leader. I walk alongside people of every shape, size, destiny. That's what makes my life interesting. So I jumped. You know that there is that famous joke, my God, stop the world turning. I want to jump off. I did that. I jumped off. I jumped off a turning world. But because I kind of think, maybe I'm faster or more eclectic or freer on my own. And I believe that it is very important to advocate for change. And I believe that now there are several grassroots organization doing so, of which Fashion Revolution is one, and probably one of the more successful, certainly one of the more diverse. But as a designer, as a creative, as a fashion mom, as a human, as a mom, as a grandmother, as a citizen, I have done enough of watching the sunset and seeing what needs to go. I want to wake up at dawn and see what's happening next. So that's where I have firmly placed myself. And I'm not a fast mover. I've always been, it doesn't look like it, but it feels like it to me. I'm quite slow. I contemplate a lot. I don't want to do things just for the sake of doing things. Things matter to me. My actions matter to me. And so I'm looking at other changes. I'm looking at other ways. I can't help myself from wanting to implement changes in this industry. It's all I know of. But I'm looking for other ways in which to do so. And I do believe that the only alternative to the mainstream is the opposite to the mainstream. So I love putting all of my passion, energy and profile into supporting what I consider to be the real alternative, which is small, tiny, minuscule identities and designers all over the world, designers who don't do products but do systems, designers who upcycle, designers who regenerate from biodynamic cotton, and these are the realities I want to see. So I'm looking for them and supporting them.
Yeah, well, I think you've done a huge step into the right direction as a doer rather than just someone who preaches. At least that's how how I'm understanding this. So that's really positive, and I really enjoy hearing that you want to use your sort of profile that you do have to make that change and support small micro entities. I mean, I am myself one of those people, and I value that support immensely. So yeah.
And it's the only way. It's the only way. You guys are the only, and every time one of you says to me, "I shouldn't be making more product," I say, "Well, don't know about that. We know who we have to stop making more product."
Yeah, I mean, that's that's always...
I don't want to, I guess my ambition in life, apart from my children all getting on with each other and loving each other, which they do as adults, my next one is, how exciting would it be to see a high street that is different from Milan to Mumbai to New York to, Jakarta. They're all the same.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Jumping a little bit away from this thread is something you've done, and I absolutely value that as well. And that, I guess, is more mainstream, is your book. I loved reading that book. I felt like it was both a journey through fashion, but also a very practical guide to fashion. And I'm talking about Loved Clothes Last, of course. I do have a quote from it, which was one of my favorites, and that is, "Cheap clothing is worthy of an unedited Grimm Brothers fairy tale, made in misery, bought in haste, worn for one night, if that, and then chucked in the bin. Our ready-to-wear has turned into ready-to-waste." And from that, I want to take a step back as well from fashion, because I'm really interested around the process of creating and writing a book, and what was your motivation there, and what was the process like, just as a writer?
Okay, so that's I'm very glad I don't have another appointment. You might well have to edit me. This might be long. Have a cup of tea. So basically, the first thing is that it was not my idea. So when I was 15, my mum bought me my horoscope, a reading of my horoscope from a very famous at the time horoscope person, astrologer in Italy. And on my future, it said that the ideal profession for me would have been to be a writer. Now, I adore writing. I've been writing diaries forever, and I've been reading ever since I can remember. But I am, and always have been, neurodivergent. So I don't quite know whether I'm not dyslexic, although it does fall under the umbrella of dyslexia. I'm not dyslexic because I corrected myself. I've been reading since I was a child. But much as I adore writing, I never, ever in a million years thought that I could do it. So it was a passion. It was a dream in a closet. It was things I did and then destroyed. And I focused all of my energy on clothes making instead. But they were close to me as processes because I am an intellectual, Even the process of making clothes for me was my mind and then my hands and the why and wanting to be sustainable, but also wanting to be creative and all of that. So one day I pick up my Instagram and there is a DM. I hardly ever read DMs. I think I'd only just learned how to access my DMs. And this woman says, I would like to commission a book on mending. I'm an agent and I would like to commission a book on mending. And my reply to her, I have them photographed, was, I'm terrible at mending. Thank you for contacting me. And then I literally thought, pressed send. And then I just thought to myself within a nanosecond, this is stupid because I love writing and I'm not very good at mending. But surely I can take this opportunity and twist it to my advantage. So I checked her out. She was a really big, very important agent who literally was the agent of some of my author heroes. I read history. She has, her company they've got some of the best author books. So I wrote back and I said, look, I really am quite bad at mending. I couldn't do you a how to mend, but I do you a why to mend. And she replied straight back, said, a why to mend sounds wonderful. And that's Loved Clothes Last, described by someone as a cross between a manual and a manifesto, which for me is the best description of the book. That's kind of like 180. That was exactly what I wanted to achieve. The process of writing was fast for me, and I had to have some help because I had a deadline of having to do it in 4 months. And although the book kind of wrote itself, because writing does come very easy to me, I did have help with the research. And my eldest daughter, who's obviously native English, which I'm not, by the way, I may be bilingual, but I'm not native English. So she also helped me a little bit with the overall, for speed also, I was having to write so fast. The book came back almost unedited from the editors, which was for me a real proof that I could write. And it's all I want to do. I'm not joking. It's all I want to do. But I want it so badly. I've realized so much that this is what I want to do when I grow up. That yet again, I've got to give it time. I've got things to learn. I've got confidence to gain. I don't know that I want to write about clothes all my life, although of course I want to write about clothes all my life. But I certainly don't want to necessarily write another political book, but maybe I do. I don't know. So I'm writing 2 very different things at the moment. But again, I've always written, I've always read. I guess the only difference is that now I will give myself permission not to destroy what I write. But the process of writing is 100% my ideal state of being. I'm on my own. I kind of go straight back right into myself. Words are just like crochet stitches. You can make a perfect one and then there's another word that you can just see with your naked eye. It's got a defect and you have to start again, find another word. And the stories that my head makes have always entertained me. So yeah, I guess at 56 years old, I finally know what I want to do when I grow up.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. That's such a beautiful, I think, a story of just who you are as well. So I love that. And besides that being your own personal endeavor, how did the public respond to that book so far?
And that's the other one that will be here another week. I had no experience of anything like it. I've had no experience of anything like it. I get teary-eyed when I mean, literally here. It's because people are so generous. They've been so generous with me. They've taken the time to let me know how much they've enjoyed the book. They've helped me sell the book because each time someone posts a picture of them with that book or uses a quote from the book. It's a genuine, honest way to help me. sell that book. I've actually just received my first royalty payment, which was, a massive achievement for me. I mean, I want to frame it. And, but above all, the most important thing for me was that, some people that read my book haven't used a computer. I've received written letters from an old lady in Italy who, look, she literally sent me a little bit of the lace that she's done. This is a tombolo. I don't know how you call it in English. Very difficult lace to make. Wow. I've had a group of something like 6 or 7 young girls in Nigeria. Was it Kenya? Sorry. In Kenya, and in passing each other the book. So doing a book club, reading my book, and each and every one of them commenting on how it changed them. I had a girls' school in Mozambique using my book as their library reading. I've had people in New Zealand contacting me about how much they've loved my book. I've had kids, young kids, younger than my own kids, telling me that my book was life-changing for them. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I have shivers all around me right now because I don't even know how, I can't even begin to think how it feels.
As I said, it's a very novel experience, and one that will fill me for years and years to come. I just need to go back to this moment, those people, to know whatever I've done in life, thank you.
This is super positive, and I'm afraid I'll be going on to the negative train right now.
Okay.
But maybe not. What is a lesson that you had to learn the hard way about the industry you're working in, so the fashion industry?
I'm still learning it. This is an industry that the fashion industry, I entered the fashion industry because I love clothes, not because I loved its people. I still don't love its people. It's an industry that if it can belittle you, it will. If it can ignore you, it will. If it can, for whatever reason, invalidate you, it will. I've had all of that and more, and constantly and more. It's not been an easy ride. I've been loved and hated in equal parts. I tend to be loved by people who want to make change and hated by those who don't. It's not nice to have people who don't like you, who you can feel behind you, that you're creating problems for them. But I know that I have to create those problems. It's an incredibly false and hypocritical industry. There are people who, to your face, will show a smile, and to your back, literally elbow you out of the way. But, and let's be frank here, as the brilliant Catherine Hamnett said, and Catherine Hamnett used to be my hero. She then became a colleague, and we've now become friends. Well, now, for a long time, we've been friends, good friends. And when talking to her, I said, Catherine, what made you want to be in this industry? And she said, you know what? I knew I could excel because, to be honest, the majority of people that work in fashion are quite stupid. And that's been the best advice I've ever had when it comes to fashion, because at the end of the day, even though it's hard, I have made a decision that I will only suffer if I am not liked by people that I like. If I am not liked by people whom I don't actually like very much, well, then it doesn't matter. Ultimately, we can still perform our functions as individuals without necessarily having to cross nicenesses, or we can still be very polite and kind to each other. Not in this industry. I try to be. But, so the lesson that I've learned the hardest way is that you'll be elbowed out at any opportunity. And it's one of these industries where I guess being kind is difficult. But at the same time, the more you are kind, the less this industry will be able to read you. And that's been also very much my advantage.
Kill them with kindness. I think that's from Selena Gomez.
Yeah, you see, I didn't know that one. I'm going to get that one. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for sharing. Orsola, I think one of your books is definitely one where I highlighted, I think, almost every second word, literally. And one of the highlights is something that I see coming around all the time, but it's this idea of one person's trash can be another person's treasure. And you are referred to as the queen of upcycling. And to me, that's kind of the extending of lifetime of garments and clothes, taking care of them, etc. And they could obviously be passed on, but how do you see this idea of end of ownership? And here I'm kind of referring to this new business model waves and new ways of using and having fun with fashion, where we no longer own things, but maybe we just use them. So I'm here just thinking about swapping and rentals and these kind of models where we no longer just buy clothes, but we use clothes and we don't own them. How do you feel about it?
Well, it's not for me. I mean, it really, really isn't not for me, but I totally see the point. And, you know, it's interesting because that's what fast fashion has actually done. It's killed itself because it's created a generation of citizens who really don't give a shit about the clothes that they own. So for them, owning is not, you know, if you're owning just horrible stuff that you can buy at will and everybody else has, what is the point of owning? I get that. I totally get that. I am not like that. In fact, to the point that the other day I was asked if I wanted to borrow a designer's clothing. And I said, I'm really sorry, but it would turn me into shoplifting because I can't give it back. You know, once something's on my skin, once I love something, do you think I'm ever going to give it back? Forget it. So it's not for me personally, but that's the joy and the glory of fashion, that it's not for everyone personally. It's about our own tastes. So I love the concept challenging ownership. I think it's incredibly important. I challenge all the time, but that is in the sense that I challenge ownership because I challenge the people who want to own my clothes, i.e. my children. Definitely challenge them all the time because they nick my clothes all the time. So my ownership is challenged sufficiently. Thank you very much. But swapping, sharing, passing on, I would say that maybe 80% of my wardrobe is not mine originally. Probably more. In fact, I may be able to count with my fingers the pieces in there that I have bought, say, in a shop, in a first-hand shop. I do buy second-hand, and I do buy vintage. I make no qualms that I am someone that buys, but I am also someone that sheds. I very often buy with my entire family in mind. So I have 4 children. We all wear, I wouldn't say the word sharing, because as I said, they share, I kind of share, but I get overly attached for sharing, that we all wear the same clothing. So if I buy something, I've already got 4 people whom I know I could give it to them if I didn't want to wear it anymore. Plus, there's my cousin, and there is my best friend. All of those people come into my constellation of, you know, sizes and taste and colors when I make a decision to buy something. So you can imagine. I'm also very lucky because obviously I've got young designers that I mentor. I receive fantastic discounts from them. Recently, I've had this thing whereby having fashion revolution, therefore feeling less somehow pressure to keep myself hidden from the world and to be a certain type of person. I've done 2 shoots as a kind of an influencer, believe it or not, for 2 brands I really love, and I did it for the clothes. You know, I got given free clothes. I'm so happy. So, as you see, I have a real deep passion for my clothes. But, you know, literally the other day, my comfort jumper, probably one of the oldest things I own, covered in holes, covered in holes. I did the most intricate crochet all around it, and I put semi-precious stones. So the dichotomy of having a completely broken jumper, but decorated with citrines and garnets, it's crazy. But that's how I love my clothes.
Mm-hmm.
But the renting thing, I'm more worried than other initiatives. I mean, I love renting if it's hugely localized. But renting in itself will have issues. Carbon footprint, buying new, people will want to rent the latest collections. In any enlarged system, people rent the latest collection. So there is still a lot of buying and transporting and dry cleaning that goes into it. So I see it as a very interesting opportunity because it challenges ownership. From a sustainability perspective, I don't actually rate it that high. But from challenging ownership perspective, and for a new method for younger generations, in that respect, I think it's very interesting. On the other hand, all the technology around mending, repairing, which I called a quiet technology, like people talk about quiet luxury. I mean, these guys have been gently, silently, and beautifully moving behind the scenes till they get shit hot investments for the past 10 years. That I want to talk about with bells on. I mean, that I make use of 100% regularly. I mean, that's the best thing that's come back.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Just to kind of go back then to this idea of owning, and one thing that always is at the back of my head is the affordability of clothes, and especially sustainable fashion. Do you think we can have cheap, or rather maybe better word, affordable clothing that don't cost the earth in the way they do today?
Well, yeah, of course, but that's not up to the sustainable designers. That's up to the brands that have the capability to make cheap clothing and, to change their systems. I mean, we can't and we shouldn't have as cheap as we've got now because we know what that cheap means. And there are all sorts of ways to actually be able to afford. It's a bit of a myth that sustainable fashion is unaffordable. Sustainable fashion is unaffordable if we buy at the same speed and quantity that we would buy fast fashion. Sure, yeah, you can't buy 3 pairs. If you like something from a sustainable fashion brand, you can't buy double. You can't say, yes, I'll get 2 pairs of those. So I'm sure that it's just a different way of buying. You buy to accumulate. You save up. But I mean, what really pisses me off is that the Primarks, the Shine, the Zaras, the H&Ms, they are the people with a responsibility to make cheap and sustainable fashion. They clocked it with the cheap. They can do cheap, so now make it sustainable. Rather than talking about it, go ahead and do it. I buy, if the tragedy of it all is that just imagine a brand like anyone, let's say Zara. Say the guy from Zara puts his hand up tomorrow and says, I'm actually going to slow down production and I'm actually going to be paying my supply chain, my garment workers, a dignified living wage. They'd sell so much more, even if their prices went up. I mean, suddenly Zara would be the go-to cheap brand. People wouldn't notice that they've put it up by X percentage. So I find it really surprising that these guys are so short-sighted not to understand that that would be the biggest marketing ploy that they could think of. So, but going back to actual expenses and how expensive it is to buy cheap fashion, to buy sustainable fashion, we have distorted the way that we buy clothes. And the reason why these brands are still somehow invisible and therefore a little bit more expensive than they could be is because we don't look for them. So if we actually started to look for them, we would find that inevitably things and prices would go down for them. Materials would become, if they grow, they can have access to better materials, which is cheaper for them to buy, and so on and so forth. So it's a bit of a catch-22. But there are so many ways that we can support sustainable designers from all over the world, even if we're buying from them one tiny thing a year, one tiny thing every 2 years. Find them, follow them, ask them, where are you showcasing? Find out, because they will have the time to answer your questions.
No, I 100% agree. And you know what's really interesting? I don't tend to go to high street at all. And if I do, it's more for sort of research purposes and just understanding the reality we live in. And I happened to go to the high street of Glasgow, and I went into New Look, and the first thing I saw was this, I doubt it was cotton, probably polyester top, and it cost £30. And I was really shocked by the price. I thought it was really expensive for a New Look top.
Yeah.
And then I kind of started looking around, and then I was extremely shocked by the prices at these stores, that actually fast fashion, maybe it's to do with, the economic environment we're in, with the cost of living crisis and things like that, and everything increasing in price. But I was absolutely shocked by the prices I saw. And
yeah, God, that's really brilliant news.
Yeah.
I mean, New Look, 30 quid for a top. I know sustainable brands that would give you one for 45.
I know, exactly. I was absolutely shocked. And I mean, the quality was just as poor. And I feel like there was nothing that changed apart from the price. So I was absolutely shocked. And I was just amazed that people actually buy from New Look for that money. I don't know.
Unbelievable. I didn't know that. But there's another thing I wanted to say. I don't know whether you're going to ask the question, but I think it's important. Because you mentioned... So for me, one of the most important things that we haven't done is actually invest in upcycling. So, and this is one of the things that I want to really put my weight behind, because for various reasons. I mean, one, we do need a code of conduct for those who use pre-existing material, because we do need some kind of a specification of what those pre-existing materials are. But because I genuinely believe that the next 10 years are for those who reuse. And, and I believe that the technology on mending and repairing has proved us that you don't need to be tied to the mainstream or sponsored by the mainstream to make a start. Obviously, we know of apps, mending apps that now have got the support and the sponsorship of the mainstream, but not when they started out. So my feeling is the future belongs to those who reuse. And because it's been so heavily uninvested in, they tend to be very small brands, from all over the world. But my story right now, what I'm telling everyone is that if we had invested a percentage of what we invested on recycling in upcycling, we'd have the systems for collecting and the systems for sorting. Because there's no bloody point in investing in the systems if you haven't yet found the solution. So the more money goes into this niche technology of separating fibers that we're nowhere near, the less money actually goes on to people. And the problem is that it's people that we need to create those desperately needed systems in order to unclog the landfills, in order to interrupt waste, to start thinking about waste as a resource before it becomes rubbish.
Well, I guess you preceded my question, which was my final question, really, is any last words of wisdom from you? Besides the upcycling idea, is there anything you'd like to share?
Keep talking. Keep talking to others. Keep talking about climate change. Keep talking about inequity and injustices. We've got a last chance to make a change to this culture. We've got it wrong. We've spent millennia colonizing, conquering, rather than meeting, getting to know each other, learning. And this is the state we're in. This is a grave state we're in. So when it comes to fashion, Every day you pick something up, you wear it, you go out. That's a conversation. Keep having that conversation with yourself and keep having it with others. The fashion industry is a big industry. Any change within that industry will have a huge impact. And we all wear clothes. So it goes without saying that if we make changes to our clothes, we do have a shot at changing the industry. So don't stop.
Okay, great. I mean, I love summarizing this whole conversation and around it. We all share clothes. This is in common with all of us, so I think we all play a part. But thank you so much, Orsola, for your time today. It was a real pleasure and just a treasure of wisdom. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Olga. I'm glad we managed to speak with each other in the end.